As I said at the beginning, FDI can take a form of setting up a newly established business in a foreign country, or it can be in the form of cross-border mergers and acquisitions. And as of late, a growing portion of FDI has been in the form of mergers and acquisitions. And we're going to see in a little while in the next slide, the proportion of the proportion of mergers and acquisitions with regard to the entire FDIs. But one main reason why there has been an increase in mergers and acquisitions cross-border is because of the ongoing liberalization of capital markets and the integration of the world economy. So as we discussed in our previous lecture, markets are getting more and more integrated, and this allows a free movement of capital across the globe, and in that case makes it easier to perform or to undertake mergers and acquisitions. Compared to greenfield investments, remember greenfield investment is the one that develops a company from scratch. So one or key advantages of mergers and acquisitions over greenfield investments is speed and access to proprietary assets. If you are to develop a company from scratch, of course, that would take time. But if you're merging with or acquiring a company that's already established in the foreign market, then of course that would be a lot faster. And this mode of FDI has become very popular for those firms who wish to protect, consolidate, and advance their global competitive positions. Because remember, sometimes, timing is very important too. And if you are to undertake a greenfield investment and it's going to take some time, then, during that period, you might lose to your competitors. And by the time you're ready to operate, it might be kind of too late, so to say. So that's why mergers and acquisitions allow multinational companies to get into foreign markets fast and, consolidate and advance their position in that market and also globally. This table presents announced greenfield projects and cross-border mergers and acquisitions by group of economies for 2019 and 2020. And the group of economies are developing, and transition economies. What we observe here is that mergers and acquisitions, in terms of the value, in terms of the dollar value, are a lot more popular, or they're a lot higher than the greenfield projects. However, in terms of the number of these mergers and acquisitions and greenfield projects, the situation is reversed. In other words, greenfield projects are a lot higher than mergers and acquisitions. When it comes to developing and transition economies, the situation is the opposite. Cross-border mergers and acquisitions do not seem to be as popular as greenfield projects. In other words, greenfield projects are a lot more in terms of the value and also in terms of the number undertaken in these countries, both, as I said, developing as well as transition economies. Cross-border mergers and acquisitions are expected to create what we call synergies or synergistic gains. And what this means is that the value of the combined firm becomes greater than the standalone valuations of the individual firms after the merger or the acquisition. Let me try to illustrate this by giving an example of what we mean by synergies. Think about, for example, two car manufacturing companies. One that excels in producing diesel engines and is the leader in the diesel engine cars, and that is not the leader is not so great in the petrol engine cars. On the other hand, there might be a company that is, the leader in the petrol engine cars, but is not so great in the diesel engine cars. So if these two companies were to merge or one acquire the other, then obviously both companies could improve on their weaknesses, which is in one case, the diesel engine cars, and in the other case, the petrol engine cars. And in that way, synergies or synergistic gains would be created for both of them. And the combined value of the new firm would be greater than the value of these individual cars if they didn't merge or if there was no acquisition. But this may not necessarily always work. It would depend on the motive of the acquiring firms. And there has been examples of mergers and acquisitions that didn't really, work well. One famous merger that happened in the car industry was that one between Daimler and Chrysler. Daimler is the parent company of Mercedes-Benz, the German car manufacturer, and Chrysler is an American car manufacturer. So some time ago, they merged, thinking about that they could create these synergies and in that way improve the value of the company as a whole. But the things didn't really work out well for them, and eventually they, so to say, unmerged, and they went separate ways. And you might be wondering why this is the case. Well, obviously there are a lot of reasons, but these kind of deals are most likely to involve firms with different national cultures, different things in terms of the work culture and etc. So of course these would create difficulties and would make it difficult to create these synergies between the two. Here's a table with some data that shows the average wealth gains in millions US dollars from cross-border acquisitions. We're talking here about foreign acquisitions of US firms. And we have acquirers from different countries, namely Canada, Japan, UK, and other countries. And here's the number of cases of these acquisitions. This data here shows the percentage of research and development over sales in the acquirer and the target firm. But what we are interested here is to see the synergistic gains and what this table provides. So what we see here is that when US firms were acquired by Canadian and Japanese companies, then both acquirer and the target companies increase their wealth or increase the value of their companies. However, in the case of UK and other countries, we see that the synergies were not as great. In the case of UK companies, on average, they were negative when we look at the combined effect on both the acquirer as well as the target firm. However, it is shown that the acquirer bears the loss of its firm's value, but the target company increases its value. However, on average, the synergies are negative, so to say. And in the case of other countries, it's the acquirer that that bears a negative impact on the value of the firm. However, the combined value is still positive, so we do see some positive synergistic gains.